Okay, so this video might kill me, okay? I'm reading from more about the Trinity and how they use paganism to justify the Trinity, the threefold persons in the Godhead. Three persons in the Godhead is the doctrine of the Trinity, which is from Roman Catholicism to Reformation, which was started by Theophilus, who was the one who Tertullian studied under, and Theophilus and Tertullian came up with it, and everyone else for the past few thousand years, with the exception of a small thread of people, have believed in this doctrine made up by Theophilus and um, Tertullian. So here we go. This is going to be a tough read, man. The Two Babylons is not an easy book to read from. So, okay, here we go. Chapter 2, Section 1, Trinity in Unity. If there be this general coincidence between the systems of Babylon and Rome, the question arises, does the coincidence stop here? To this the answer is, far otherwise. We have only to bring the ancient Babylonian mysteries to bear on the whole system of Rome, and then it will be seen how immensely the one has borrowed from the other. These mysteries were long shrouded in darkness, but now the thick darkness begins to pass away. All who have paid the least attention to the literature of Greece, Egypt, Phoenicia, or Rome are aware of the place which the mysteries occupied in these countries, and that whatever circumstantial diversities there might be, in all essential respects these mysteries in the different countries were the same. Now, as the language of Jeremiah already quoted would indicate, that Babylon was the primal source from which all these systems of idolatry flowed, so the deductions of the most learned historians on mere historical grounds have led to the same conclusion. From Zonaras we find that the concurrent testimony of the ancient authors he had consulted was to this effect, for, speaking of arithmetic and astronomy, he says, it is said that these came from the Chaldeans to the Egyptians, and thence to the Greeks. If the Egyptians and Greeks derived their arithmetic and astronomy from Chaldea, seeing these in Chaldee were sacred sciences and monopolized by the priest, that is sufficient evidence that they must have derived their religion from the same quarter. Babylon, the Chaldean mysteries, he said it right there. Both Bunsen and Layard in their researches have come to substantially the same result. The statement of Bunsen is to the effect that the religious system of Egypt was derived from Asia and the primitive empire in Babel. Layard again, though taking a somewhat more favorable view of the system of the Chaldean Magi than, I am persuaded, the facts of history warrant, nevertheless thus speaks of that system. Of the great antiquity of this primeval worship there is abundant evidence, and that it originated among the inhabitants of the Assyrian plains. We have the united testimony of sacred and profane history. It obtained the epithet of perfect, and was believed to be the most ancient of religious systems, having preceded that of the Egyptians. The identity, he adds, of many of the Assyrian doctrines with those of Egypt is alluded to by Porphyry and Clemens, and in connection with the same subject he quotes the following from Burke on Babylonian cylinders and monuments. The zodiacal signs show unequivocally that the Greeks derived their notions and arrangements of the zodiac, and consequently their mythology that was intertwined with it, from the Chaldeans. The identity of Nimrod with the constellation Orion is not to be rejected. Overoff also, in his learned work on the Eleusinian mysteries, has come to the same conclusion. After referring to the fact that the Egyptian priests claimed the honor of having transmitted to the Greeks the first elements of polytheism, he thus concludes, these positive facts would sufficiently prove, even without the conformity of ideas, that the mysteries supplanted into Greece, and there united with a certain number of local notions, never lost the character of their origin, derived from the cradle of the moral and religious ideas of the universe. All these separate facts, all these scattered testimonies, recur to that fruitful principle which places in the East the center of science and civilization. If thus we have evidence that Egypt and Greece derived their religion from Babylon, We have equal evidence that the religious systems of the Phoenicians came from the same source. Macrodius shows that the distinguishing feature of the Phoenician idolatry must have been imported from Assyria, which in classic writers include Babylonia. The worship of the architect Venus, says he, formerly flourished as much among Assyrians as it does now among the Phoenicians. Now, to establish the identity between the systems of ancient Babylon and papal Rome, we have just to inquire in how far the system of the papacy agrees with the system established in these Babylonian mysteries. In prosecuting such an inquiry, there are considerable difficulties to be overcome, for as in geology, it is impossible at all points to reach the deep underlying strata of the Earth's surface, so it is not to be expected that in any one country we should find a complete and connected account of the system established in that country. But yet, even as a geologist, by examining the contents of a fissure here, an upheaval there, and what crops out of itself on the surface elsewhere, is enabled to determine with wonderful certainty the order and general contents of the different strata over all the earth. So is it with the subject of the Chaldean mysteries. What is wanted in one country is supplemented in another, and what actually crops out in different directions to a large extent necessarily determines the character of much that does not directly appear on the surface. Taking, then, the admitted unity and Babylonian character of the ancient mysteries of Egypt, Greece, Phoenicia, and Rome as a clue to guide us in our researches, let us go on from step to step in our comparison of the doctrine and practice of the two Babylons, the Babylon of the Old Testament and the Babylon of the New. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop here and make a part 2. Thanks for watching.